The Charlottetown Islanders, the hottest team in the queue. The Calgary Flames, the hottest team in the country. And Jonathan Taylor, the hottest running back in the NFL. All that and more. It's Sports QuaranTV. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Sports QuaranTV. Chris, Dobson, Gerry Green coming at you. We've got a great show lined up for you tonight. A lot of hot things to talk about, Gerry. We're going to start, as mentioned in the intro, right off the top, the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. The Charlottetown Islanders have turned it around yet again on this yo-yo season they've been having and back to being the hottest team in the queue.
Yeah, go figure, Chris. They've won 5 in a row and sit tied on top of the standings with the Sherbrooke, the Phoenix, who, a couple of years ago, Moncton and Sherbrooke were fighting for the top spot back in 2019, 2020, and how quickly Sherbrooke has bounced back. And maybe that is because, Chris, Sherbrooke has acquired one of the hottest players in the league in Joshua Waugh. If you want to delve into these two teams and what, Charlottetown's doing so well, Charlottetown's made some very astute trades, if you want to give Jim Hulton another pat on the back. And he seems to be able to restock the shelves over and over, Chris. And I speak specifically of Xavier Simoneau and of Patrick Gay, who came from Sherbrooke. Simoneau came from Drummondville, didn't he?
Yes.
Drummondville. Yes. Okay. So Xavier is leading the league in scoring. He's only played 17 games. He's got 34 points. He's the overager. And he was brought in, the stud that they brought in after losing, a good crop of 20-year-olds that Charlottetown had last year, and plus their goaltender in Ellis. And here you have Jacob Gooby doing the job along with the import goaltender. Nothing spectacular. Their goals against is at 2.55, which is one of the tops in the league. I'm saying not spectacular, but they're doing it quietly, Chris. They're not doing it with a bunch of fanfare. They're doing it with a good road record, and they're doing it with a good home record, good balance, I guess. And you have Lucas Cormier on the blue line leading a good defensive core that is also offensive as they play defense.
Yeah, you talk to, you talk about defense there, and you look at what Lucas Cormier has done. And, I had a chance to talk to Corey Arsenault, of course, the voice of the Islanders there a couple of weeks back. And he was talking to me about, some of the moves. And it was kind of during that lull period where Charlottetown was up and then they started to come down a little bit. And it was all off the back of, you remember, Gerry, the injury to Xavier Simoneau. And, when he was down and hurt for a bit, you talked about, what he meant to this organization. And it shows, statistically speaking. I mean, he leads their team by leaps and bounds. But if you look at the goaltending, to me, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, and Jacob Gooby and Oliver Satney, they've gone ahead and they've split the starts. I think Gooby's gotten 12 and Satney's gotten 8 starts so far on the season. And you're right. You talk about the goals against at 2.55, although in a regular year, maybe that's not amazing, but overall it's good enough to do what they're doing and get the wins. And the fact that you're not riding your goaltenders, and I'll call them 1A and 1B. Yeah. I mean, it all starts between the pipes. And if that's working well for you, you've got a great blue line back there. Your offense is starting to click. Watch out, because I think these Islanders are a real deal. And, I think they very well could be buyers here in a month.
Well, and for both Sherbrooke and for Charlottetown, if they don't score on you 5-on-5, don't dare take a penalty, because they both are 1 and 2 when it comes to power play. Sherbrooke's at 31% and Charlottetown's at 30%. And then on top of that, the Islanders have the best penalty kill at 88.6, Chris. Those are dynamite numbers. And when you put it together with a balanced attack, you get the league's leading scorer, you got the second best power play, you got the best penalty killing, you probably got the best defenseman in the league in Lucas Cormier. There's a lot of things going well in Charlottetown when you think, we didn't have them really in the discussion. We had Bathurst. Yeah, they were in discussion as the top 3, but not the impact. And again, we're only 20 games in, but they certainly look like they've laid the groundwork again, the foundation again, to be successful. And acquiring Patrick Gay, who leads the team in goals with 13, they got him for Justin Gill and a couple of first rounders last year, Chris. And again, astute trading by Jim Hulton to stock the shelves back up with quality 19 and 20-year-olds.
You're right. And if you look at it, it's, you say only 20 games into the season, but Gerry, that's a third of the way through now. I mean, we're 33.33% of the season is in the bank here now. Yeah. And now people are starting to see, you're not just playing these Maritime teams anymore. In fact, they've all taken road trips to Quebec. Quebec has come through the Maritime. In fact, a lot of Quebec teams are rolling through the Maritimes this week.
Four this weekend.
So if you look at what they've done, and I just pulled up the numbers because I know we were talking about goaltending stats a couple seconds ago. I was looking at them. So out of the two of them, Oliver Satney is actually leading the goals against conversation. He's posting a 2.13 right now. And then you look at Jacob Gooby, he's got a 2.76. So overall, if you can do that, and you talk about Patrick Gay, Xavier Simoneau, Lucas Cormier, the list goes on and on and on, and Noah Lowen. This team is a great team overall. Like you said, don't sleep on them. I think they're going to be active. We haven't really put them in the conversation. Maybe it's time to slap a little respect on the Charlottetown Islanders name.
And you know what, Chris? The people on the island are going to watch the Islanders too. They're averaging over 2,500 fans per game, which is to their capacity. Probably, I would think 32 or 33 is the capacity in the rink in Charlottetown, the Eastlink Center. I was looking at the attendance numbers this week, and Chris, it has been a discussion with the environment we're in these days and where you can go and where you can't go and how you can get there. Quebec still leads the league with attendance, but they got an 18,000 seat facility they're only averaging just over 6, Chris. Halifax, same thing. They're number 2, and they've always been number 1 and 2 for the longest time, but the numbers have changed. Moncton's still in at number 3, but the surprise to me is Gatineau. They've got a new rink. I saw the highlights out of Gatineau where St. John went to play the Olympic. It looks like a beautiful new facility, holds 4,000 people, and they're averaging 31.75 in Gatineau. Chris, they're the 4th highest in attendance in the league.
You're starting to see fans come back to the rink, and there was some alarm. Biggest shock to me so far has still been at TD Station in St. John, where the fans are yet to come back. I mean, it's shocking to me. And now again, the team is underwhelming right now. They're underperforming where they should be. They're going to get it right. I wouldn't be too concerned about what this team's going to do. They're going to be a Memorial Cup contender. Don't even worry about that. But the fact that the fans aren't going on in still shows that, hey, you know what? This thing is still real, Jerry, and some people out there are still concerned, but it is good to see the fans. I mean, the Moncton Wildcats, the Avenir Center, they posted their biggest turnout of the season, I think, last weekend. Yes. It was great to see. I love seeing fans back in the building. You see smiling faces all over social media. It's almost as if people are happy to be back, where the happiness is.
Yeah, Moncton had over 4,000 last week in one of their games because the Magtonian was in town, which is, again, great. That's the way it's supposed to jive together. But here's St. John, as you mentioned, averaging just 2,400. Bathurst is at 1,600, just changed or got some help from the city in regards to making them viable and stay heads above water. And then I look at, how I follow the MHL lately, Chris, because I've spent a lot of time doing some of that. And here you have the Edmundston Blizzard, average over 2,100 fans at the Jean Dague Center in Edmundston. It's a brand new facility built 4 years ago. It was built for this. And that's when the Dieppe Commandos moved to Edmundston, and they've loved it. Every game they get over 2,000 fans, and as a matter of fact, averaging over 2,100 fans. It'd be interesting, Chris, if it ever got to the point, if a Q team could go into Edmundston, if they would be able to support that with the population they have.
Hey, you look at the hockey following. Remember when the Blizzard left, when the Dieppe Commandos left and went to Edmundston, they became the Blizzard. You couldn't get a ticket in the building. It was the hottest. It was the hottest rink in northern New Brunswick. Anyways, just looking up the numbers, our crack staff of research, Jerry, 3,718 is the capacity at the Eastlink Center in Charlottetown. 3,700 fans. Right. So
it's 2,400 in Edmundston is their sitting capacity, and usually before COVID they would have standing, and it usually be over 2,500 for sure when that was allowed. It's an interesting week ahead for the Maritime teams, and specifically the New Brunswick teams, Chris. Right. As you have the Quebec Rampart, the Rouyn-Noranda Huskies, the Baie-Comeau Drakkar, and the Blainville Boisbriand Armada coming through the Maritimes, be it Halifax, Cape Breton, Charlottetown, and the 3 New Brunswick teams. It should be some interesting results coming our way, especially with Quebec going through on the road as one of those teams that was touted as a contender for the President's Cup.
Let me ask you this before we move on real quick. Last topic on the queue, and that is, in your opinion, is there a team out there or 2 teams out there that you're surprised are underperforming?
Well, St. John's an easy finger to put them on, but again, I think they're feeling their way, and they have the tools and the assets to make themselves better when the time is necessary. A surprising team for me, on a positive note, Gatineau's a surprising team for me in what they've done.
Moncton has to be there.
Moncton would have to be there too. Are you talking about the positives or the negatives?
We move to positives because that's the kind of guy you are, and I like that.
Well, And that is the way I am. I'm glass half full. Moncton's been tremendously entertaining and fun to watch. And what I like about it, what makes a team is a team that pulls in all the direction and play with a lot of heart, a lot of desire, a lot of passion. That for me is hockey. And you give me 20 guys like that, and I think I have a successful team. So I don't need to have any superstars. But I guess that would be Rimouski is a little bit of a surprise for me too. As a matter of fact, Gatineau and Rimouski are going to play 2 games in Rimouski this weekend. Right. So we'll see where the rubber hits the road there too. But Rimouski has surprised me a little bit, and I see Alex Drover's having a good season in Rimouski in his final year. Imagine Alex Drover is 20 years old now. We've been talking about him for so long. I mean, it seemed like he was just a kid. He bounced around to a couple of teams, but he seemed to have found a home in Rimouski.
Speaking of guys we're going to be talking about for a long time, let's stay with hockey but switch leagues. We got to talk about Leon Draisaitl. I got a question. We're going to the NHL, the Edmonton Oilers, Leon Draisaitl. Is he would have to be the most underrated to this day still hockey player in the National Hockey League. I don't understand. And the reason I say underrated is people don't give him the credit he deserves because his line mate is Connor McDavid.
But is he always his line mate, Chris? At times they do split them up, trying to spread the wealth around, and he's still been successful. It amazes me. I never thought at first, let's say 3 years ago, I thought, Draisaitl. He's playing with, McDavid. Anybody can be on McDavid's wing and score 30 goals, but he's starting to prove he's a threat all by himself, even without McDavid around. And the subject came up this week. You have McDavid and Draisaitl. Are they the best 1-2 combination? Well, Chris, the thing that stands out for me when you talk about 1-2 combinations on any team, yes, the individual statistics are important, but they haven't won anything yet. And if I look at 1-2 combinations like Yager and Lemieux, or even look at Curry and Gretzky, look at Trottier and Bossy, if we want to talk about dynasties, even go back as far as talk about Oilers and Esposito that won, scoring races, finishing 1 and 2. Talk about Hull and Oates, really. They were a 1-2 combination that were high in the stats as well. But the underlying theme there is there's some guys I mentioned there that have won championships, and I think they need to have that stamped on their chest before I throw them into the category of being one of the best 1-2 combinations.
And for those fans born in the 20th century, we can also talk about Jonathan Davis and Patrick Kane, who have won.
Yes.
You can talk about Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. They've been in the same situation.
Well, absolutely.
I got to include our young fans, Jerry. Got to include the young fans.
I'm the older statesman. But I was thinking of more dynasty types, and we don't have that many dynasty now anymore, Chris. But yes, the Taves and Kane is a really good comparison for sure, because they won 3 cups in Chicago.
Let's talk about the Calgary Flames, Jerry, because they are without a doubt. I mean, their name, if you even go back last year, you look at what, their name was synonymous with winning. They wanted, everyone thought before the season started, the Calgary Flames were going to be the team to beat, and then they fizzled out. Well, this year they seem to be that team that was all hyped up last year. I mean, what's working? What's going on right there?
Well, you saw them all last week. They played on the road and won every game, I think, on the road. They're 9-2-2 on the road. They've only played 7 home games, of which they're 3-1-3, and they won last night. And that's that trap game when you come home and you've got to take on, who are they playing? The Rangers? Who were they playing last night? Anyways, they won at home. Oh, Chicago. That was one of those trap games after a long road trip. Then you come home and you got to play the day after you get back, and that's a tough one. But Calgary adjusted. They've won now 4 in a row. They're on top of the Western Division, Chris. But the fellas that you don't mention, we talk about, of course, Gaudreau, and you talk about Lindholm. Right. But Matthew Tkachuk continues to be a leader. And what about this Andrew Mangiapane and his 15 goals? He has 15 goals in 20 games, Chris. He's a youngster, and he's supplying some offense from another source, of which maybe that's been important for Calgary.
Mangiapane has been fantastic this season. I think, I didn't know what the expectation coming was. If you look at his career numbers, I mean, he's about to blow those out of the water expectation wise.
Yes.
But you can't be talking about other players too. You're referencing all the guys that are currently being talked about. You can't not talk about Oliver Kylington. I mean, when there was a gaping hole when Giordano was left and he was exposed and went to Seattle, well, I was looking at his numbers as well. And right now, his performance, he's the leading scorer amongst defensemen in Calgary with 3 goals, 12 points, and 16th among NHL blue liners right now. Like,
never heard of him.
+10. Exactly.
Never heard of him.
Right. No. And he's, you look at some of the biggest things going on right now. I mean, everything's firing on all cylinders. You talked about their road record. It's and Markstrom, I mean, again, he was in the list as well. I mean, they're getting good goaltending as well. Yeah, I don't know, man. Either way, I love watching it. I love watching Flames fans.
Well, and I watched the games. I love hockey, of course. And when the Flames were on the road, it seemed like they were every game was on TV, and I got to watch them. And it looks like Sutter has them moving the pucks in the right directions and being confident and smart, and especially on the road, not doing anything stupid. When in doubt, get it out. A simple process, but they've got some skill too. And I find they move the puck around very niftily. And full marks for where they're standing right now. It's one of those teams that, as you say, a defenseman they added on the blue line that no one's ever heard of. Those are the types of behind the scenes, moves that you make or bring them up from your system. And speaking of bringing up from your system, you got the Pelche jersey in behind you. He's having a great year down in Stockton. Again, one of those things that you could insert him in the lineup and probably not miss a beat.
It's a good and bad news story for them right now, because you're right. Jacob Pelche is lighting it up in Stockton right now. And, every time you see highlights coming out of the Stockton Flames and what they've been doing, he's always the center of attention. He's the talk. This is what's going on. Jacob Pelche, future Calgary Flames superstar. It's something that Wildcat fans got to see for years, Jerry. I mean, so now the unfortunate thing is, yes, he's getting developed in the AHL and the pro style game. But because they're so good, it's probably a pretty rare sight we're going to get a chance to see him called up. I mean, it's probably going to take an injury or two to see it happen. But Stockton, you look at their farm system in general and who they've got in there. I mean, yes, they sent Ryan Francis back to St. John for his Mem Cup run. But don't forget, they've got a lot of talent in Stockton that they're developing as well. So this Flames team is going to be good for a long time.
You remember last year, Chris, when we talked about playing all Canadian teams, and I said that was boring. I wish they could have, Crosby and them could come up, Tampa Bay can come up and all that. Well, Crosby and them did come up to Canada for the first time and won all 3 games last week that they played in Canada. Toronto, was it Montreal, wasn't it? And Winnipeg.
It was.
Three
clinic
good,
in Montreal.
Yeah, 3 good games. Anyways, won all 3, and they're the hottest team in the Metro Division. Meanwhile, Chris, the New York Islanders, who had spent the first 15 games on the road to start the season, 13, whatever it might be, go home and lose both games and get shut out in both games. They've lost 6 in a row. Is that a shock to you, what the Islanders have been doing? Or is it injuries and COVID? Is there something that I don't know?
No, yeah, it's a bit of a shock, I think. I mean, I was excited to see what their new building was going to look like when they finally played in it last week. But, you look at everything the Islanders have done, and on paper, there was a lot of hype around this New York Islanders team this year.
Yeah, very much so.
I don't know.
In the Atlantic Division, Florida continues to be hot, Chris. They've won 3 in a row and still sit on top of the standings. Toronto's right there with them. Toronto's 8-2 in their last 10. We got to give them their marks on that. You know who's not hot in the Atlantic Division, Chris? Buffalo's all of a sudden cooled off.
I was going to say Montreal too, but everybody.
I said they lost 3 in a row. Meanwhile, in the West, who else is getting hot? Colorado, they won 5 in a row, Chris. They are red hot. Meanwhile, Winnipeg and St. Louis have cooled off in the last 10. If you want to go with hot and who's not, that's what's going on in the other divisions.
Last topic, I want to talk about the NHL before we move on, and that is, you talked about the Leafs and that they've been hot. And, it starts with the guy between the pipes for them, Jack Campbell. You got to think at this point, I know it's still early on, but he's got to be thinking as a Vezina favorite. And do you think that he could potentially be a number 1 for Team Canada at the Olympics if they get there?
And Chris, I was corrected on this the other day, and I looked it up myself. Jack Campbell's an American. Did you know that?
Apparently not, because I just asked you if he was going to start for Team Canada. So nope, apparently not. That's my bad.
And I said that to somebody the other day. The way Jack Campbell's playing, maybe he'll get to be with team. No, they said, well, he's not a Canadian. He's an American. Well, any rate, I was looking at the hottest Canadian goaltenders currently in the NHL, Chris. Tristan Gerry from Pittsburgh. Carter Hart and Scott Wedgwood from New Jersey. And where else do you go? You got the big names of Fleury and Price, but, Fleury's in Chicago. Will he play for Team Canada? Will Price be available? There's a lot of holes when you want to think about the goaltending for Canada in the Olympics, if the Olympics happen.
Yeah, again, that's the big question mark. And, it's all going to depend on if we see any more postponements due to COVID here in the National Hockey League. The Senators are back at it now. But as far as that goes, you're right. You don't know. And in regards to Carey Price, and I won't go too much into it, I saw an interview with Mark Bergevin this week saying he's hoping to have Carey Price between the pipes before the holidays. He wants him in the net before December. So,
that would be amazing.
He's been practicing. He's in Brassard. He's been on ice training the last week. I saw, another great interview with Jake Allen this week saying how great it is good to have him back. And he's actually apparently in good spirits. Everyone's super excited. You saw the practice video that Habs was trending on the internet 2 days ago, and it looked like everybody was having a good time. Like they were first in the division. I don't understand what the hell everyone's having a good time.
I know that burns you big time.
Anyways, let's move on, Jerry.
These jerseys, the Olympic jerseys, just quickly. I saw the Olympic jerseys come out. Why are we so focused on being in black? I mean, we're red and white. Why are we doing so much black all the time? And Chris, the series of the century for me was in 1972 when the Summit Series where Canada played Russia. Of
course.
And Canada wore black pants. And those black pants were in fashion back then. But why Canada still continues to have a solid black jersey with red trim, I don't get it and I don't like it.
I love the whites. The white hockey uniforms going out there, the white jerseys with the red leaf on it. Love them. Not a big fan of the other ones. Despise the black ones. Let's move on, Jerry. The NFL.
Okay, buddy.
Last week, Chiefs Cowboys game of the week. It was a dud. But are the Chiefs a favorite again?
Chiefs are leading the division. Did you know that, Chris? They're 7-4 and they lead the division.
Our producer is making sure we all know that, Jerry.
Yeah, that includes the LA Chargers, the Vegas Raiders, and the Denver Broncos. What a feat. Good job. But the Chargers, I think, are the team that I think should win that division. Now, is Kansas City bounced back? Well, it's amazing they played some defense against Dallas, or did Dallas help in that regard? It was really a game that everybody was expecting to have some gunslinging going on, and it really didn't develop. There was a couple of great games last week, Chris. That Minnesota-Green Bay game was great, and the LA Chargers against Pittsburgh was an outstanding game. High-scoring games, which I like, but some drama in that Minnesota and controversy, too, in that Minnesota-Green Bay game, which was a late game on Sunday.
You know what else was a great game? The Indianapolis
what happened?
Bills.
Indianapolis.
Buffalo Bills.
Oh, well, now you would expect that would be an upset, would you? You were hoping they would win. You didn't expect them to win.
I was betting with a good buddy of mine, and I had already prepared to lose. And I'll tell you why. I know Jonathan Taylor is good. I didn't think he was 32 attempts, 185 yards, 5 touchdowns. That great. Now the best running back in the NFL, but ahead of Derrick Henry finally. But everything was clicking for them. Their defense was fantastic. Yes. The O-line just paved the way. Now, again, the Buffalo Bills have the worst running defense in all of football. So cue in the best running back in the NFL. That's just destined for disaster. But Jonathan Taylor having the game, Carson Wentz looked good as well. But Jonathan Taylor having the game he had has to move him into the conversation about MVP. And if this is the case and this keeps rolling, could he be the first MVP that's not a quarterback in God knows how long?
Well, they're taking on the GOAT this week at home as Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady come to Indianapolis. But the Indianapolis very sneakily are now 6-5 and still a couple games back from Tennessee.
Good wild card.
But Tennessee has stumbled and fumbled, and Tennessee's in New England this week. They could easily be 8-4, and Indianapolis could be 7-5 and just a game back. But the interesting thing, if you look, Chris, and we're still, in week 12, I think, aren't we? Week 13, week 12. At any rate, in each of the conferences, there's 8 teams that could vie for a wild card spot, let alone division championships. It's been very entertaining how parity has become part of the NFL. You throw out the Lions perhaps and a couple of other duds. I mean, you have Chicago and the Lions playing during Thanksgiving. Who's going to watch that? My gosh, I'm not. You can't put your eyes on that. But those games, that Tampa Bay Indy game, the New England Tennessee game, and you got the Rams playing the Packers. There's going to be a lot of jostling at the top of the echelon of the NFL this week too. Those are 3 good games to keep an eye on.
Jerry, we've got 60 seconds to the wrap. I want to talk about it. CFL playoff update.
Well, yes, they're getting into the semifinals as Hamilton's going to host Montreal, and there's a real lot of banter going on between those two teams. So that should be a spirited affair. And also, always when there's a game in Saskatchewan, the Rough Riders hosting the Calgary Stampeders, that'll be entertaining. The winners of those two teams will take on Toronto and Winnipeg, respectively.
Well, it's always exciting when you see the CFL and things, because there was a lot of speculation about what was going to happen this year with the CFL.
Yeah.
There was a lot of concern. It's great to see it back. But Gerry, it is time for the wrap, everyone's favorite part of the week, where you and I hit as many topical conversations quickly, give everybody the straight facts. We're going to start right now with the MHL as always. Gerry, give me an update.
Chris, it's a special week in the MHL as they focus on Indigenous recognition and reconciliation. And the week will be sponsored by Scotiabank, and it runs till December 5th. And each of the MHL teams has brand new jerseys with that the Scotiabank has produced. They'll be wearing them during the week. They were designed with the creation from consultants from the local First Nations. And they'll be auctioned off at the end of the week on December 5th. Everett Santa Pass is involved in a big way. If you want to see the jerseys, they're on the website, themhl.ca. Beautiful jerseys, and it'll be a tremendous week in the league. Chris, the Tampa Bay Rays have spent some money. What did they spend it on?
Holy, I guess they saw enough. They saw exactly what they needed to see in 70 games to lock up shortstop Wander Franco, 20-year-old shortstop, 12 years, $223 million. $185 million of that is guaranteed. I will tell you right now, when that team ends up in Montreal, he is going to look good in an Expos uniform. And for those Blue Jays fans wondering, Vladdy's contract's coming up. And remember, when this comes up, this is setting the bar right now. That number is going to start with a 3 in front of it, so be prepared. The Monctonian was last week, Gerry. What was the outcome?
Oh, Chris, it's back. It missed in 2020, of course, and 60 teams took part in 3 divisions for the 40th annual division, or edition, rather. And in the 18 major under 18 division, St. John Vito's beat the Moncton Flyers. Flyers were the defending champs from 2019. They won 1-0. Vito's hadn't won since 2004. In the under 16, the St. John Knights edged the Basin Armada of Bedford 2-0. In the major under 15, it was the Rangers of Lance, Nova Scotia, 3-1 winners over Nova's Antigonish. And the teams from Atlantic Canada, Quebec, Saskatchewan, and Ontario took part. And Chris, it was another tremendous event. How about your boy LeBron? He's in trouble. What did he do?
Almost 17 years ago to the day in Detroit, Malice in the Palace. Well, LeBron James, the NBA announced on Monday that LeBron will be suspended 1 game without pay, which is about $284,000. Probably something he's gotten a couch cushion somewhere for recklessly hitting Isaiah Stewart in the face. Hey, you know what it is? It's the NBA. Everyone's fired up. Well, Gerry, that is going to wrap us up here tonight. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We loved being here. We will see you next Thursday.